Hello, everybody. How are we today?
Hello,
Okay, I'm just going to post a quick message in the Zalo group to let everybody know, and then we'll get started. Okay, so before we begin, I've just got Hannah, I've got your feedback from the debate ready. So for your so as the first speaker, your organization was scored a 1 because there was only one argument given, so there was nothing to organize. But as the fifth speaker, I scored you a 4 because you organized the arguments very well in your closing statements. For your arguments, I scored you a 3 because they were pretty good arguments. And the argument you delivered as the first speaker, that was a good one. For your evidence, as first speaker, I scored you a 2 because you gave some good examples in your speech, but you need more evidence that you can cite. So according to this person or according to this study, so on and so forth. So we need more evidence that's come from other people and less examples. And as the fifth speaker, I scored you a 1 because you didn't cite any, or you didn't give any evidence in your closing remarks. Your rebuttals weren't required. And your presentation, I scored you a 3 because you were quite lively. You're very expressive with the way you delivered your speech as both first and final speaker. So,
hi, teacher.
Hello, Annie. How are you?
I'm great.
That's good. So yeah, that's your feedback, Hannah. And for today's lesson, everybody, we're going to go back over what we looked at in the last lesson. So what am I doing here? So we're going to go into a little bit more detail and point out the different sections of some of the speeches to give you a better idea of, to give you guys a better, not that one. To give you guys a better idea of how you should structure a debate speech. So we'll start with first proposition. So going through this list again, we look at the first 2 sections, so the introduction and the opening statement. So what we need to do for these parts of the speech. So we need to greet the audience, the judges and the opposing team, clearly state the topic of the debate, and we need to present our team's position, let everyone know that we're the affirmative team. We need to provide a clear and so an easy to understand and a short, simple statement that outlines our main argument that the team will be supporting. And then we need to clearly explain the importance and the relevance of the topic. So why are we debating about this? Why should you believe our team? Like, what's so important about this topic? So let's have a look now. And of course, I'll also point out the signposting. So really making it obvious about which part of the speech you're up to. Because I had a few students in a few other debates and I honestly couldn't tell when one argument finished and the next argument started. So when you do give your multiple arguments, you need to make it really, really obvious about when you are changing topics, essentially. So let's have a look here. So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges and respected opponents. So we're politely and respectfully greeting the audience, the judges, and the other team. I stand before you today as the first speaker of the affirmative team to argue in favor of the motion that the use of renewable energy sources should be significantly increased. So just in these first couple of sentences here, we've greeted everybody respectfully. We have let everybody know which team we're on. Even though the moderator will announce, like I did during your debate, please welcome the first speaker of the proposition team. So they know, but it's still good for you to be very clear about absolutely everything. And then, of course, we cite the motion that we're arguing. And then we give the importance of why we think or why we're arguing this topic. So we firmly believe that this step is crucial in addressing the pressing challenges posed by climate change and securing a sustainable future for generations to come. So that's that's making this topic theme very important in this debate because we're giving a very, very big reason for it. And back onto signposting, onto the signposting part. Now let me now present our arguments in support of this proposition. So I'm letting them know I've finished with my introduction and now I'm moving on to presenting my arguments. So be as obvious as possible with your speech because yeah, there's the audience and the judges are about to listen to a lot of information, and yeah, so they're going to need you to make it easy for them. So we move on to our first argument here, and I want you to pay attention to the teal paragraph structure that we use here. So we start with our signposting. So firstly, up is onto his first argument. It is undeniable that the world is facing a climate crisis of unprecedented proportions. So we're setting up with a strong topic sentence. We go on to explain now, provide a bit more detail. Greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels have led to rising global temperatures, extreme weather events, and the loss of biodiversity. So that's kind of a evidence and explanation because we're providing examples of what's happening here, but we're also explaining the problem in more detail. By significantly increasing the use of renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and hydroelectric power, we can substantially reduce our carbon footprint and curb the adverse impacts of climate change. So again, in this speech, we're using examples as evidence here. So we're suggesting solutions, the types of renewable energy that we can use. And then we finish up with our linking sentence. So we tie this issue back to the main topic of the debate. So transitioning to renewables is not only environmentally responsible, but also economically advantageous, as it opens doors to innovation and job creation in the rapidly expanding green energy sector. So we've tied it back to the motion. So transitioning to renewables, it's environmentally responsible, and it lets us know, it lets the audience know that this is going back to the topic. So again, you're going to hear me repeat this a lot, but be as obvious as possible with your speech. Don't leave anything up to the judges or the audience to interpret for themselves. You basically have to treat them like little kids and tell them exactly what you mean. So again, signposting here. Secondly, we go into our second issue. So our first, so that was our first, this is our second. Next, our second argument is like national security and like making sure that we have a stable source of energy. So we've quoted we've given our second argument. And again, it goes through like a teal paragraph. Next, we've got our third argument. So we're also now going to talk about the improved public health outcomes. So fossil fuels create air pollution, which affects our lungs, and that can lead to heart and blood vessel diseases. So, and again, note that the teal paragraph structure. And we will go back up, have a look at a bit more of what we need in this speech. So I've had a look at the introduction, the opening statement. We've given definitions and context. So we've talked about why it's such an important issue, and that's appeared in each of our arguments. We're giving each argument a stake. So we're saying fossil fuels can lead to air pollution. That will get you sick. If we transition to natural energy, that won't be a problem. We'll get better. We'll keep our citizens healthier, basically. So we're trying to make these issues seem as important as possible. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Excellent. So we've gone through points and arguments. And if we notice there, so we've given the three or four main arguments to support our team's position. We've provided evidence, although in your speeches, you should definitely have more evidence that you can cite and talk about in your speech. So, for example, according to the national government's Department of Energy and Resources, or whatever it's called, this study shows that fossil fuels contribute to this much air pollution, and that can have this effect on people's lungs. So yeah, really clear with our evidence. And then as well, this is mostly to do with the linking sentences, but we need to clearly explain the reasoning behind each point and how it adds strength to our team's case. Next, we have the rebuttal preparation. So this is not actually the rebuttal itself because no one from the other team has spoken yet. So we need to make sure, but we still need to make sure that we are, how do you say it? We still need to make sure that we're ahead of them. So we try to guess what they're going to say and try and take away their chance to weaken our case. And it also has the added benefit of showing that you understand the opposing side's point of view, but you still think your team has the stronger case and you still think your team makes the better point. And then finally, we go on with the conclusion, where we summarize the main points and we restate our point of view. And then we also want to just reinforce the importance of our team's position and why it's going to be the best outcome. So let's have a look at that, the rebuttal preparation and the conclusion. So in anticipation of counter arguments, we recognize that some may claim that renewable energy sources are not as reliable or cost-effective as fossil fuels. So there might be some blackouts from time to time. The energy might cut out. It might be a bit more. It might be a bit more expensive than fossil fuels. So we are acknowledging those problems, but then we go on to give a reason as to why that's not an issue or why that issue doesn't matter, essentially. So yeah, we're basically trying to stop them from having a chance to pick holes in our point of view. So, however, advancements in technology have significantly improved the efficiency and affordability of renewables. So we're already cancelling out these arguments. We're saying that the technology is there, it's a lot more efficient and reliable, and it's a lot more affordable now. Additionally, investing in renewable energy now will lead to long-term cost savings. So again, strengthening that case to show that it might be a little bit more expensive now, but in the long run, we're going to save a lot more money. So showing the good things about our side of the argument. And as well as the costs associated with environmental degradation and climate change impacts will be avoided. So they're saying that it's going to be better for the environment, and we're going to reduce the effects of climate change by adopting green energy. And here's our conclusion. In conclusion, increasing the use of renewable energy sources is not just an option, but a necessity in the face of the global climate crisis. So that was one of the very first things that we said in the first argument, was we're facing a global crisis. And so now we're saying renewable energy, like, we need to do this to help fight this crisis. By embracing clean, sustainable energy, we can safeguard our planet. So now we're going back to our 3 arguments. We're re-mentioning those. We can protect the planet and the environment. We can strengthen our energy security, so we're not relying on international imports of fuels and coal and things like that. And we're promoting public health. So that goes back to our 3rd argument of renewable energy stops, renewable energy will emit less greenhouse gases, and it'll protect people's health. We won't get sick, we won't get lung problems, things like that. The benefits of transitioning to renewable energy are vast and far-reaching, and it is our moral and practical duty to take decisive action. So again, like, there's way more good points than bad points for doing this, and we need to do this. Like, it's our duty as good people to take action and stop this problem. The time to act is now, and I urge you to support this motion to pave the way for a brighter and sustainable future. Thank you. So again, a call to action and trying to get the audience and the judges on our side. So we see how the first proposition speaker sets up a very strong case for our proposition team. Now let's take a look at the first opposition speaker. So we can see how the opposition speaker starts to set up the weakening of the proposition's case. Because remember, for the opposition team, they need to remind the audience of the burden of proof. So it is the proposition team's job to prove themselves correct, but it's not the opposition's job to prove themselves correct. It's the opposition's job to make you doubt the proposition team. So the opposition are playing offense, they're trying to attack, and the proposition are playing defense. They're trying to defend their point of view and make as strong as possible case. So let's have a look here. The exact same requirements for the introduction. So greet everybody, restate the topic of the debate, but we need to state that we're against the motion. So we're the negative team. We need to define the motion as well. So we also, we get a chance to define the motion in our own way to make our attack on the proposition team's arguments as strong as possible. So if we can get the audience to go, Oh, so yeah, I agree with them. Renewable energy, we shouldn't do this. I think it's more about what they're saying. Then we can bring the audience and the judges over to our side of the argument. So let's have a look at that. We've got our first 3 points. So again, the polite greetings, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished judges and esteemed opponents. As the first speaker of the negative team, so we're being very obvious here again, I rise to address the motion that the use of renewable energy sources should be significantly increased. So we've restated the motion. While we acknowledge the importance of sustainable energy solutions, we firmly believe that the motion put forth by the affirmative team is not without its flaws. So we're acknowledging that, yeah, they raise a good point, but there's a lot of problems with it that they haven't mentioned. So we're going to mention these problems. So you believe us more than you believe the proposition team. So allow me to present our arguments against this proposition. So we have here now again being really obvious, telling everybody what we're about to do. So firstly, again, signposting, very obvious. It is essential to recognize that while renewable energy sources have their merits, they cannot entirely replace fossil fuels in the immediate future. So this is where we start to redefine the motion or redefine the topic of the debate, where we're saying, yes, renewable energy can help us in the future, but the proposition team are arguing we need to go 100% green energy and we need to do it now. We're saying it can't be done like that. There's going to be too many problems. The intermittency and unpredictability of renewable sources like solar and wind power pose significant challenges to energy stability. So they're saying that the technology is not all there yet, and it can be unpredictable. So it might cut out, it might cause blackouts, could be problems with the electrical system. And that's going to make our energy supply very unstable. We can't rely on it. Unlike traditional power plants, which provide a steady and reliable energy supply, renewables are subject to weather conditions and require expensive energy storage systems to mitigate fluctuations. So they're saying to avoid these problems, we're going to need to spend a lot more money on it. And yeah, so we're going to have to spend a lot more money to make sure this works. Until we develop more efficient and cost-effective storage technologies, solely relying on renewables would risk compromising our energy grid's reliability. So again, we can do this in the future, but the case they're arguing is that we do it now. And right now, the technology is not there unless we're prepared to spend way too much money on it. So they're already starting to pick away at the proposition team's case. We move on. Secondly, so again, signposting. The transition to renewable energy on a massive scale necessitates substantial upfront investments. And now they're talking about just how expensive it's going to be. So again, picking away at the proposition team's case. While proponents of the motion argue for the long-term cost benefits, the immediate financial burden cannot be ignored. Many nations, especially developing ones, may struggle to afford the initial costs of implementing renewable infrastructure. So they're saying that some countries that aren't as rich as other countries, they might struggle to afford this renewable energy solution. So that's again another attempt to pick at the proposition's case. These costs could lead to higher energy prices for consumers, potentially burdening low-income households and hampering economic growth. So they're saying this could be so expensive, in fact, that it could pretty much derail an entire country's economy. It could be that bad. So in contrast, fossil fuels are a lot more affordable and accessible. Fossil fuels offer a more affordable and accessible energy option, particularly for regions heavily reliant on coal and oil. So again, everything that we've said just goes back to how much it's going to cost and the effect that that cost will have on the people that rely on the energy. Furthermore, so again, signposting, making it very obvious, we've moved on to a new issue. Increasing the use of renewable energy sources can have unintended environmental consequences. So now we're talking about bad things that can happen that we didn't mean to happen. We didn't want that to happen. It's just a consequence of moving to green energy. So the production and disposal of renewable technologies. So now again, we're going to talk about the effect of what happens when these systems start to break down and we need to fix them or we need to upgrade them. So such as solar panels and wind turbines involve the use of rare metals and chemicals that can harm ecosystems. Additionally, large-scale wind and solar projects can lead to habitat disruption and land use conflicts. So now we go into more detail about some of the problems that it can have on not only animals in their natural habitats and their ecosystems, but also like humans might disagree with taking up so much space to put a wind farm or a solar farm there. So that can result in people getting into arguments and just disagreeing about what they use certain pieces of land for. As we advocate for sustainability, it is essential to consider the full environmental impact of our energy choices, not just in terms of greenhouse emissions. So the opposition are making a very strong case here for you're only thinking of one part of the environmental problems, which is the greenhouse gas emissions. But we've also got things like, again, habitat disruption. So do we have to cut down a big forest to make space for this renewable energy source? Do we have to, or are we going to have to buy or take away land from people to be able to put these energy sources on? And lastly, so again, a good signposting, making sure that we are very obvious that we're moving on. The pursuit of renewable energy should not overshadow the need to invest in clean technologies that complement existing energy sources. So the main case here being made is that, where is it here? So yeah, the main argument being made here is that the proposition team is saying, okay, we need to just do this now, just drop the old system, go straight to this green system. And the opposition is saying, but we have solutions that can work a lot better because they can work with the current energy system. So we're not going to put people out of jobs. We're not going to risk power outages and blackouts and all of those things. There's a way to do this safely and smartly. So neglecting these transitional technologies could hinder our ability to, effectively address climate change while we wait for renewable energy to reach its full potential. So again, we can transition slowly. We don't have to do it now. And we can wait for the technology to catch up with the need. So very good arguments there made by the opposition. And let's have a look here. So we've addressed the main arguments and provided rebuttals for the points made by the proposition team. Again, you should make sure that you've got evidence to back up what you're saying. So find studies, statistics, and all of those good facts to prove your case. Because anyone can say anything and make it sound convincing. So we need to make sure that we've got evidence so no one can challenge us on what we're saying. And finally, we need to make sure that we are explaining how it's weakening the affirmative team's position. We construct our counter case. So we need to make sure that we let everybody know about a different idea that can support the negative team's position. And we need to offer interesting reasons to reject the affirmative team's claim. So we can't just say, nah, they're wrong, don't listen to them, they're talking rubbish. Again, we need to have reasons and evidence to prove why they're wrong and why what they're saying is wrong. We need to then anticipate potential responses from the affirmative team. And we need to show that we've been thinking about counter arguments that they may try to make to discredit us. And then we need to quickly address how these potential arguments, we need to show that we've thought of these arguments to show that we have considered the affirmative team's point of view. So again, by showing that we've really thought about these issues well, it can show that that can make our case look a lot stronger, because we're saying, yeah, we have considered what they've said, but we think this issue is, we think this reason's true, and we think that this reason cancels out what they've just said. And then, of course, in our conclusion, we need to summarize the main arguments presented by our team. And we need to remind everyone about our team's position and why the affirmative team has not proved their case properly. So again, we just need to keep just picking away at the affirmative team's argument to make it look weak in the eyes of the audience and the judges. So in conclusion, we, the negative team, recognize the significance of renewable energy sources in the global fight against climate change. So we've immediately said, yeah, like we understand it's an important issue. We just disagree with how you are proposing that we deal with this issue. However, we firmly contend that a hasty and exclusive push towards renewables may have an adverse effect on energy reliability, economic growth, and the environment. So we've just reminded everybody about the three arguments that we've made. So our stance is not to dismiss the importance of renewables, but to advocate for a more balanced approach, one that integrates cleaner technologies and considers the practical challenges we face in the present. So again, we've taken the chance to redefine the topic of the debate, and we've put it in terms that we can argue and we can disagree with the proposition team. So we urge you to reject the motion and consider a more comprehensive and sustainable energy strategy. Thank you. So again, we've made that call to action. Side with us, don't believe the affirmative team, and consider our point of view, which is we can do this safely and more slowly. So are we starting to see that how to build effective arguments so that we can either prove our case well or show the weakness in the other team's case? I take that as a yes. So give me just 2 moments, guys. I'll reshare my... Okay, sorry, I just had a message I had to reply to. Okay, so now we'll check out the arguments of the second proposition speaker, and we'll see what they have to contribute to their team's argument. So again, with the introduction, greet everybody, acknowledge everybody, be respectful, remind everybody about the motion and our team's position as the affirmative team. And then we need to briefly remind everybody about the main arguments that our first speaker made. We need to reinforce and expand on the arguments made. So providing additional evidence, examples, or statistics to strengthen our team's position. And we need to, we now get the chance, sorry, to clarify any points that were challenged by the negative team. So any counter arguments they made, this is our chance to set the record straight and say, well, you said we said this, or you challenged it and put this point out, but here's what we actually think again. So we actually meant to say this. It just gives you a chance to make your arguments a bit stronger. So let's have a look here. So ladies and gentlemen, respected judges, worthy opponents, being respectful to everybody. As the second speaker of the affirmative team, I stand proudly to reiterate and further strengthen our case in favor of the motion that the use of renewable energy sources should be significantly increased. So again, we've restated the motion, reminded everyone what we're arguing about, and we've been very obvious with it. So second speaker, affirmative team. We now go over the arguments of our team.
Hello, teacher.
Hello, Tim, welcome. So recapping the arguments put forth by our first speaker. So again, being super obvious with what we're doing. We firmly established that the world faces an urgent climate crisis that demands immediate action. So yeah, in this point, we've reminded everybody our main argument, it's a serious crisis. We need to deal with this now. Renewable energy sources offer a viable solution to mitigate the impact of climate change and transition towards a sustainable future. So here we are talking about, again, reminding everybody that renewable energy is the solution to our problems. Allow me to reinforce our key arguments and respond to the counter arguments presented by the negative team. So there's our being obvious again, making sure we let everybody know what we're about to talk about. So firstly, our reliance, again, signposting, first thing we want to say, our reliance on fossil fuels perpetuates carbon emissions and exacerbates global warming. So we're now again pointing out reasons why we should move to green energy immediately. The evidence is clear and undeniable. Greenhouse gas emissions are causing irreparable harm to our planet. Increasing the use of renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and hydroelectric power will significantly reduce carbon emissions and combat the dire consequences of climate change. So again, making this a very serious issue and saying that green energy is the way to go to stop these problems or reduce the impact of these problems. We must prioritize the health of our environment and future generations over the short-term convenience of fossil fuels. So this one's saying that, yeah, we will need to suffer a little bit to have a better outcome in the end. So short-term suffering for long-term gains, basically. We're going to gain more in the long run. We now also move on to dealing with the negative team and what they've said. In response to the negative team's claim that renewables are unreliable, we acknowledge that while intermittent energy generation can pose challenges, advancements in energy storage technologies are rapidly addressing this concern. So the proposition team are taking one of the arguments from the negative team, and they're saying, yeah, you're right, this can be a problem, but the solution already exists. So it's not even a problem now, is it? Because we've already got this solution here. It then goes on to provide examples. So innovations like grid scale batteries and pumped hydro storage enhance the stability and reliability of renewable energy supply, ensuring a consistent power source for all our energy needs. So again, they're saying, well, you've said that this can be unreliable, but here's the technology we need to make this problem go away. Moreover, grid modernization and smarter energy management systems enable us to efficiently integrate renewables into our existing energy infrastructure. So again, dealing with another issue, saying that not only does the technology exist to make this a more reliable source of energy, but the technology exists so that we can move away from fossil fuels without just suddenly cutting it and having all of these big problems. So they're just constantly providing reasons to strengthen their case. Secondly, the financial investment required to transition to renewable energy is an investment in our future. So now we're talking about, yes, you've said that, yes, you've said that it's going to be expensive, but we're going to invest in the future so it can be cheaper in the long run. So yes, the initial cost can be significant, but the long-term benefits far outweigh them. Studies consistently show that the economic advantages of renewable energy adoption, such as reduced healthcare costs, job creation, and energy savings, offset the upfront expenses. So they've provided some good evidence here by saying studies consistently show, so they're citing a source here, or they're letting you know where they got the information from. And then they've provided some good examples. So healthcare will get cheaper because there won't be as many people with like lung issues, going back to the argument made by the first speaker. They say that it can create jobs and it offers energy savings. So it's going to work out cheaper as well. And that will all cancel, or not cancel out, but it will make the upfront amount of money that it costs more acceptable when you start saving money in the future. We must recognize, is that your brother, Tim?
Yes, I do.
Hello, Tim's brother. So we must recognize the economic opportunities inherent in renewable technologies and seize the chance to be at the forefront of this green energy revolution. So what they're saying here is, again, yes, it'll be expensive now, but you're going to end up saving a lot more money in the future. So this is just such a smart move to make. We need to do it now. So creating that sense of urgency and importance in the argument. We then go on to address the negative team's concern and come up with a rebuttal to what they've said. So addressing the negative team's concern about rare metals used in renewable technology production, we acknowledge that responsible sourcing and recycling practices are essential. So, excuse me. So once again, we're saying that, yes, we recognize you've raised a good issue and a problem here, and we're already providing a solution. And then we also go on to say, we also go on to rebut against their argument by saying, but fossil fuels cause problems like this too. It's not just our green energy that you're, it's not just our green energy solution that creates these problems. So we must not overlook the severe environmental degradation caused by fossil fuel extraction. Oil spills, deforestation, and air pollution are just a few examples of the devastating consequences of our current energy sources. Embracing renewables is a step towards cleaner production and a more sustainable world. So they've provided good examples here. So oil spills, very severe, have a very bad impact on the ocean and the animals and the plant life that live in the ocean. Deforestation, so again, if we're digging up fossils, digging up fossil fuels, sometimes we need to. Yes.
Is the pollution of is the pollution of sound make do the pollution of the sound make anything of the environment?
Sound pollution.
Yes.
So talking about noise pollution, I don't know enough about it to give a proper answer, if I'm honest, but based on what I do know, I think noise pollution is just, it's more to do with human environment. So if you're living in an apartment building, for example, and you're playing your music at full volume and you're disturbing all your neighbors and causing disruptions and just being unthoughtful in general, I think that's just noise pollution. I think that's just a fancy term they've made up for annoying your neighbors. However, I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. So deforestation, we're talking about sometimes to dig up fossil fuels out of the ground, we might need to rip a whole bunch of forests apart to be able to get to the fossil fuels below the ground. And air pollution from not only digging it out of the ground, but producing the actual fuels that are made with it, and also burning the fuels can put those toxic fumes into the air. Where are we?
Teacher, is the waste? What about the everyone is wasting the food?
Everyone that's wasting food, that one I'm personally, again, not sure about. From what I've heard is that we actually produce enough food every year to feed, I think, 110 to 115% of the global population. I think it's just the way that that food is given out. So I think that's more to do with countries like America, Australia, England, Europe and stuff like that. The richer countries, they can afford more food, so they get more food. Some of the poorer countries that can't afford the food, they don't get the food. It's unfortunate, but that's the way that that's the way that the distribution works. If you pay for it, you can get it. But still, if you get food, you should eat it. You shouldn't waste it. Wasting food is bad. So embracing renewables is a step towards cleaner production and a more sustainable world. So again, tying it back to the issue, embracing renewable energy will create a cleaner world, have less pollution. And lastly, we appreciate the importance of transitioning technologies, but we cannot afford to delay decisive action. So here they're saying, yes, we appreciate that you think that we can't just change, but we can't afford to wait any longer. We don't have time to we don't have time to transition. We need to just get to green energy now. So again, there they are just trying to take apart any counter arguments made by the opposition. While advancements in clean coal and natural gas are valuable, they still contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. We must prioritize a rapid transition to renewable energy sources while exploring ways to make.
What is the gas is the air pollution.
Yeah, well, gas can contribute to air pollution, absolutely. But gas is an actual type of fuel. So you've got things like oil, petrol, natural gas. They're all just different types of fuels, but they all can release those toxic fumes that create air pollution.
It's helium.
Helium is a type of gas, yes. I'm not sure how it's made or where it's found. But yeah, helium is a type of gas.
Hydrogen.
Again, not sure, but I do know that it is another type of gas. Not sure where it's found though. But yeah, so those gases that you've mentioned, they're not actually the air pollution we're talking about, because they're all created to use for their specific uses. But if they're released into the environment, then they can create air pollution. But those gases aren't the air pollution necessarily if they're used properly.
I don't know.
Anyway, let's finish this off, and then we want to take a quick look at how to close an argument. So we must prioritize a rapid transition to renewable energy sources while exploring ways to make these transitional technologies cleaner and more efficient. So what the proposition team are arguing here to make their case stronger, we need to take action now, and we can deal with any problems as they come up. So it's more important now to take this action to create a cleaner environment. In conclusion, the affirmative team firmly believes that significantly increasing the use of renewable energy sources is not just a matter of choice, it's an obligation to safeguard our planet and future generations. So they're saying the argument they're summing up with here is saying that it's not just something that would be nice to do, it's something that we need to do. It's very important to protect the future generations. The time for decisive action is now. By embracing renewable energy, we can combat climate change, enhance energy reliability, create economic opportunities, and protect our environment. So again, we're just going back over the arguments that we've made. We urge the audience and esteemed judges to support the affirmative team's position and pave the way for a brighter and sustainable future. Thank you. So we've summed up our argument well, and then we have asked everybody to be on our side. And now to finish off, let's just take a look at the third closing speaker. Sorry, guys, I was just admiring my roommate's dinner. Okay, so looking at the third speaker. So we know the third speaker's job is to summarize your team's case. So once again, we have the introduction. We need to reinforce and summarize our team's arguments. And then we need to address any of the negative team's arguments. We also need to highlight why we've got the advantage in this debate, and we've got to make sure that they understand that we've got the superior opinion. We need to address a few more things. So why is it so important that the audience and the judges believe us? And we also need to address things like the practicalities of it. So how easy is it to do? and will there be many problems with it? And then finally, we sum it up with the conclusion, and let's take a look at the speech. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished judges and respected opponents, as the third speaker of the affirmative team, I rise to conclude our compelling case in support of the motion that the use of renewable energy sources should be significantly increased. So we've gone straight through with our respectful greetings, citing the motion again, and letting everyone know our point of view. Throughout this debate, we have presented a cohesive and robust argument in favor of transitioning to renewable energy. So we're pointing out now that all three members have worked together as a team. We've built on each other's arguments to make our case as strong as possible, and that we've provided a lot of information. Allow me to reinforce our key points and address the concerns raised by the negative team. So one final chance to reinforce the case, make it stronger, and address any concerns raised by the negative team. So again, signposting. Firstly, we firmly established that climate change is an imminent threat that demands urgent action. So they've repeatedly stated their main point. This is serious. We need to deal with it now. The overwhelming scientific consensus supports the link between human activities and global warming. So citing a bit of evidence there, saying that pretty much all the scientists are saying that humans are causing global warming. Significantly increase. Yes.
Does carbon dioxide make the global warming?
Yes, I believe it does. Carbon dioxide has an effect on the ozone layer. That's why trees are so important, because trees turn carbon dioxide back into oxygen for us, keeps us all healthy and keeps the ozone layer healthy. So yeah, by significantly increasing the use of renewable energy, we can significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, slow down the pace of climate change, and protect our planet for future generations. So we've gone back over a lot of the important reasons. So we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, slow down the pace of climate change, and protect our planet. So we're just, again, going back to those reasons, making them seem all very important, trying to build that case to say, we need to take action now. Addressing the negative team's claim about the reliability of renewable energy, we acknowledge that some challenges exist. So again, we don't have the perfect point of view, but here's our solutions for it. However, technological advancements and innovative solutions are already addressing these concerns. So they're saying these aren't even really problems anymore. Grid modernization, energy storage technologies, and smart energy management systems are overcoming the intermittency of renewables and ensuring a stable energy supply. So again, making the case that what these guys have said, it was a problem, but we've got the solution here. So always trying to find ways to make the other team's arguments seem like they don't matter, or that, yeah, that they're not important, because here's a solution. Furthermore, the negative team argued that the transition to renewables would entail substantial upfront costs. So we're going to negate the cost factor now. While it is true that the initial investments might be significant, we must consider the long-term benefits and the cost of inaction. So there's going to be a lot more serious problem, and it's going to be even more expensive if we don't take action now. Failing to address climate change will lead to far more devastating economic consequences. Yes, Tim?
Is out of time now.
Another minute and then we'll be done. Another minute or two and then we'll be finished. Okay. So so now we're going to go on to list some reasons why there's going to be even bigger problems. So increased weather event, extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and disruptions to food and water supplies. So again, we're going to respond to the next argument. I'll speed it up. So in response to the negative team's concerns about job losses, so we're going to deal with their next issue now, and we're going to give a solution to that. That means it's not really an issue. So governments and business can invest in retraining, support the workforce in transitioning to renewable energy industries, and that in fact, it can offer even more job opportunities. So we're not creating a problem, we're fixing a problem. So to always try and find a way to spin those problems into opportunities for solution. Furthermore, we cannot afford to ignore the global consensus and commitment. So now we're talking about, this isn't just an our team issue, the other countries around the world are all thinking this. The Paris Agreement and other international accords, they underscore the urgency of adopting renewable energy solutions. Embracing renewable energy demonstrates our commitment to a sustainable future and positions us as leaders in the global fight. So again, giving us the chance to seem like the first people to do it, like we're going to be the leaders. Everyone loves to feel good and strong and powerful. So if we're the leaders, we're the first to do this, then yeah, it can make people feel good. And that's a good way to convince them to do something. And then in conclusion, we sum everything up by saying we have presented these arguments and we've emphasized the urgent need for a shift towards renewable energy. If we significantly increase the use of renewable energy, then we go on to list all the things we can fight. So we can fight climate change, ensure energy security, and create economic opportunities and protect the environment. So all these good reasons to just try and leave everyone with just the best possible view of our argument. So that's class time, guys. I will see you next Tuesday.
Hello, Mr. Michael.
Oh, goodness. Hello, Ben. I'll see you later, guys. See you on Tuesday. See you on Tuesday.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Well, then when will you open the class again? Ooh.
Pardon?
Hi, teacher.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hi, teacher Michael.
Hello, Bon. How are you?
Hello.
I'm great.
Mr.
How are you?
Michael.
Very well, thank you. Hello, Ben. You talk crazy to me, I talk crazy to you. Okay, so let's give it another minute or two just to let everybody get here. Okay. Where is, oh, there we go. So how are we all today anyway? Oh goodness, I've already started in the chat.
Amazing chat.
Who's listening to music? Oh, it has to be Ben.
Sure.
Okay. So let's hope everybody gets along today. Okay. I don't get it. No. Okay, so. Oh, Minecraft. Yeah, you guys can enjoy that to yourselves. I have absolutely zero interest in Minecraft. It's a weird game with weird blocks where you build weird things in a weird world. Okay, so let's get started. No, I don't want to play Minecraft. Minecraft is just weird. I played it once and I did not understand it.
Hello,
But
teacher.
I'm happy. Hello, Quan. But I'm happy that you guys enjoy it. That's the main thing. As long as you guys enjoy it. But I'll leave
You
it to
don't
you.
enjoy it. Enjoy it is because you're old and you're a teacher.
I see Doraemon open her camera 1 second.
Oh goodness, not this again. If Jane doesn't want to turn her camera on, she doesn't have to. Apart from when we're doing the class debate, the camera should be on for the class debate. So, so I want to go back over some of these speeches again and just really point out to you guys and make everything crystal clear about what we need to be focusing on with these speeches when we write our own speeches. So we'll start with the first proposition, and then we will move into the first opposition. So, where are we here? Okay, so with our introductions, we always want to make sure that we greet everybody, and of course, greet them respectfully. We don't want to say anything unbecoming of a debater, because remember, it's a very formal conversation. We want to clearly state the topic of the debate and present our team's position on the topic. We also want to include an opening statement where we're going to outline the main argument that our team will be supporting. And we want to clearly explain the importance of the topic and why we're debating it. So if it wasn't important, what's the point? We wouldn't need to have this debate. And as well, I'm going to be pointing out all of the signposting in the speeches so that we can see. Oh, I need a drink. So yeah. So we need to make everything in our speech really, really obvious. And that's what signposting is, because there were a few arguments that were made in some of the debates that we did last week that I honestly could not tell when one argument ended and the next argument began. So yeah, we need to be really careful with that and make it really obvious. So let's have a look at the first proposition speaker. So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges and respected opponents, so being very respectful to everybody, I stand before you today as the first speaker of the affirmative team. So everyone would already know that we're the first speaker because the moderator would announce that. Please welcome to speak the first speaker of the affirmative team. Yes, Bon.
Hi, teacher. But because I remember that sometimes we have read this, but we read like you put like one people read one part, so can I put like that?
Not today, because I'm going to be pointing out, like I'm going to actually be showing you all of the things you need to include. So this is like a big tutorial for what you need to do to prepare debate speeches properly.
Okay.
Thank you, Bon. Quan nearly kicked me out of the
Class.
Quan nearly kicked me out of the call because he had the no 18-year-olds. So I nearly had to leave because I'm over 18. I'm just kidding. So we then go on to so again, we want to make sure everything's very obvious. So I'm the first speaker of the affirmative team, and then we quote the motion. I'm here to argue in favor of the motion, the use of renewable energy sources should be significantly increased. We go on to supply, so we go on to continue with our introduction and talk about why it's important that we do this. So it's crucial in addressing the problems of climate change, and it'll help to secure a sustainable future for our kids and their kids and their kids. So more signposting here. Let me now present our arguments in support of this proposition. Oh, sweet, I can annotate. So yeah, so very messily though. So let me now present our arguments in support of this proposition. We're being very, very, very obvious with everything. Oh no, I've got this line on the middle of the screen. How do I undo my annotations? Hang on. Okay, that's better. No annotations. So yeah, as you can see here, we've got to be very obvious with everything. So firstly, we're signposting. Okay, they're on to their first argument. So this is where we make our the main arguments of our debate. So it's undeniable that the world is facing a climate crisis of unprecedented proportions. So where the proposition team are going to take this from the perspective of, it's not just something we maybe should do, like this is a crisis, we need to deal with this now. And then you'll notice the teal structure of these paragraphs. So we've got our topic statement. It's undeniable that the world is facing a climate crisis. We go on to our explanation and our evidence. So greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuels have led to rising global temperatures, extreme weather events, and the loss of biodiversity. By significantly increasing the use of renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and hydroelectric power, we can substantially reduce our carbon footprint and curb the adverse impacts of climate change. So we've given examples of problems and examples of solutions to climate change. And we've done all of that into our explanation. And then we go on with our linking sentence that takes everything back to the issue we're debating. So transitioning to renewables is not only environmentally responsible, but also economically advantageous, as it opens the door to innovation and job creation in the rapidly expanding green energy sector. I do like evidence, Bon, I do. Very much so. And I'll tell you who else likes evidence. Any judge in any debate that you participate in will love evidence. So any judge.
So do you need an evidence in doing homework?
Do you say that again, Ben?
So do you have any evidence in doing homework?
Any evidence in doing homework? Well, the evidence that I've got is that I never did my homework when I was at school, and I didn't do very well at school. It wasn't until I got out of school that I started to actually learn and be interested and get smart. So yes, if you do your homework, they like sleeping more than evidence. Well, you have time to find evidence and then you can sleep. But yeah, so I've always found that the more effort I put into things and the more time I dedicate to them, the better I get at them. So if you want to become a good debater, you will need to do your homework, you will need to find your evidence, and you will need to learn these structures to write convincing arguments. So we've been through our first argument there, and now we're signposting again. So secondly, we're being obvious here. Oh, okay, we're moving on to our next argument, and then we prevent that next argument. So reliance on finite fossil fuels poses security and geopolitical risks. So we're going to make the argument that relying on other countries to import our oil and our fuels is not good, because if there's ever any disagreement between the countries, the country that sends the petrol can just say, no, they're not getting it anymore. And then that's a whole country left without their main source of power, essentially. So we're shaping this up to be a very big and serious argument. We go on here to provide explanations and reasons why it's important to embrace renewable energy. So talking about we can keep it within our own country, so that takes away the problems of any geopolitical problems, so being in a disagreement with another country. And we can enhance our own independence, and we can reduce any weaknesses that we have as a country to any other countries that give us the energy, basically. So this in turn, so then we finish it off, bring this back to the main issue. This in turn fosters a more stable and secure global energy landscape. So if every country relies on itself to provide its own energy, then we're going to have a lot more stable planet, because nobody kind of has any power over anybody else. Everybody can make their own energy and function and live well. Then we go into our third argument, and we talk about renewable energies will lead to improved public health. So we're going to keep the citizens of our country healthier. So yeah, we go on to say fossil fuels are associated with air pollution, which has a negative impact on our respiratory health, which is our lungs. And that can make worse cardiovascular diseases. So problems with the lungs can lead to problems with the heart. So the argument they're making here is with green energy solutions, we can reduce the toxic fumes being released, and there'll be less lung disease, less heart disease, and everyone will just be healthier with green energy. Next, we're going to anticipate counter arguments. So we're going to prepare ahead of time. What do we think the other team is going to say to try and weaken our case? So we recognize that some people may claim that renewable energy sources are not as reliable or cost effective as fossil fuels. So when we anticipate these arguments, we don't have to know exactly what they're going to say, but if we can think of maybe one or two big reasons that everybody thinks, well, what's something bad about this topic? And if you can come up with a couple of good ideas there, then yeah, if you can come up with a couple of good ideas there, you stand a good chance of weakening their argument, because if they mention that, you've already said that's not an issue, that doesn't matter. Ben, dare I ask who Steve is?
What?
Other Ben, who's Steve? He's not there. Okay. So, and then we also go on to talk about that the advancements in green energy technology, they have improved, so they are more efficient at doing their jobs. They can do the job better, and they're more affordable now. Bon, do you have a question?
No, teacher.
Sorry, I just thought I saw you there with your hand up. My bad. So, and then we also talk about, additionally, investing in renewable energy now will lead to long-term savings. So we're talking about, it might be a little bit expensive now, but over a longer period of time, it's going to cost us less money to have green energy than it would if we stayed with fossil fuels. So we're really trying to make a lot of good arguments here. And then it also talks about reasons for those savings. So we're going to reduce the amount of environmental destruction, and we're going to lessen the effects of climate change, which will save us money in many different areas. Oh, excuse me, many different areas. Hey, that's not fair. No mentioning mums. Okay, so we've addressed our counter issues, or we've prepared for any arguments that they may make against us. And now we just want to sum up our arguments and say, in conclusion, increasing the use of renewable energy sources is not just an option, but a necessity in the face of a global climate crisis. So we've restated our point by re-mentioning the crisis of climate change. By embracing clean, sustainable energy, we can safeguard our planet, strengthen energy security, and promote public health. So this is the sentence where we remind everybody about the arguments that we've made. So, of course, because we've just talked about a lot of information, we want to remind everybody what we've just said. We go on to mention the benefits of it again. The benefits, they're vast and far-reaching, so there's a lot of good reasons to switch to green energy, and it's our moral and practical duty to take decisive action. So it's not just something that we should do because it's not just something we could do because it seems like a good idea. It's something we should do. We need to protect the planet. And then we finish with a call to action and asking everybody to support our point of view. So the time to act is now, and I urge you to support this motion to pave the way for a brighter and sustainable future. So then, of course, we finish with a thank you, but we've summed our arguments up very nicely there. What has no evidence? Dangia Bao, what has no evidence?
Then keep saying the story that someone turned into a monster, and I said that's fake, and he said that's true, but I said that that story have no evidence for real life.
All right. Are you guys still talking about Minecraft?
Yeah, it's Minecraft.
I should be grumpy that you're talking about Minecraft. I just find what you're talking about funny. Okay, so on to the first opposition speaker. So here we go with me having a quick drink. So again, we need a good introduction. Greet the audience, greet the judges and the opposing team, restate the topic, but then you've got to clearly state your team's negative position on the topic. And of course, we also get a chance to define the motion. So to be honest, I can't even remember which class I've said this to and which class I haven't, so I'll just say it. The good thing about a debate is that you can have two teams arguing about the same topic, but those two teams can have a completely different understanding of the topic. So we'll see that as the opposition team starts to develop its case in this speech. And then we also want to highlight any potential misconceptions about the motion. So what don't people understand, or what do people think is true but actually isn't true about this topic? So let's have a look. So polite introduction here, being very obvious with our which team we're on, what speaker we are, and what we're here to do. So as the first speaker of the negative team, I rise to address the motion, and they state the motion. And remember when it said that we need to consider the other team's point of view. So while we acknowledge the importance of sustainable energy solutions, we firmly believe that the motion put forth by the affirmative team is not without its flaws. So we're saying, yeah, they have a good point of view, but we don't think they've thought it through entirely. And here's some reasons why. And then it's back to the obvious signposting. Allow me to present our arguments against this proposition. I'll give anybody $50 if they can hack my account. Don't really, I'm kidding. Okay, so we're on to our first argument. So again, being obvious, allow me to present our arguments against this proposition. And firstly, okay, we're on to our next topic. So it is essential to recognize that while renewable energy sources have their merits, they cannot entirely replace fossil fuels in the immediate future. So while the proposition team is saying, this is a crisis, we need to swap to green energy right now, the opposition team are attempting to redefine the motion or redefine the topic and say, well, we can't exactly do it right now. It's going to take more time, and it wouldn't have a good impact if we were just to do it right now and switch.
You actually turned the microphone off.
I know, I just had to talk to my roommate quickly. So, where are we here? So yeah, so we can see the negative teams attempt to redefine the motion here. So the intermittency and unpredictability of renewable resources pose significant challenges to energy stability. So we're immediately attacking the credibility of the proposition team's argument. They're saying that we can swap to green energy immediately, but there's going to be a lot of problems to deal with. So unlike traditional power plants, which can provide a steady and reliable energy supply, renewables are subject to weather conditions and require expensive energy storage systems to mitigate fluctuations. So we're immediately saying there's going to be a lot of problems, and it's going to be very expensive to fix those problems if we jump to green energy too quickly.
My chat box is like exploding.
Pardon, Anna?
I said my chat box is like exploding.
I know, mine too. Yes, Lily?
I have a question. We need to like speak our speech like very loud and clearly, and our speech to be like the people can understand our
debate, right?
Correct, Lily. Good question. So yes, we need to be nice and loud and nice and confident so that everybody can understand, because that will go towards your presentation marks. So if you're nice and loud and confident, then you'll get good marks for that part. But of course, we don't want to be like screaming into the microphone, but we want to be loud with our speaking voice. Yes. Okay. So in this first argument here, so we're attacking the reliability of these renewable resources. And we're saying that, well, we can have a solution to it, but it's going to be very, very expensive to fix it. So we're already trying to undermine their arguments. We move on. Secondly, again, being very obvious, signposting our arguments. Why am I apart from, there's Bon. So apart from Bon and myself, why does nobody else have their cameras on?
Don't ask me.
Wasn't talking to you. Okay, yeah, 'cause you never have yours on anyway, but most of the rest of you do. Okay, so into our second argument here, we're talking about, we're bringing up a new argument. So the transition to renewable energy on a massive scale is going to be very expensive. So people that agree with the motion, they argue for how it's going to save us money in the long term. But we're going to look at this from the fact that the initial expense is still going to be very big. And so certain countries might not be able to afford energy solutions like that. So some of them are going to have to rely on fossil fuels because they can't afford the renewable energy yet. And then it goes on to talk about, in contrast, fossil fuels are more affordable and accessible, particularly for regions heavily reliant on coal or oil. So they're trying to discredit that next argument by saying, yeah, but some people just can't afford it, and then providing evidence of that. Furthermore, increasing the use of renewable energy can have unintended environmental consequences. So now we're talking about, well, these are things that we didn't mean for them to happen, but they did because we went ahead with green energy. So they're talking about, the things that we didn't mean to happen, but they did anyway. Goodness gracious. Okay, where are we here? So we go on to provide evidence and an explanation of our arguments. So the production and disposal of renewable technologies involves the use of rare metals and chemicals that can harm ecosystems. So additionally, large-scale wind and solar can lead to habitat disruption and land use conflict. So we're giving more reasons as to why these cases are, why their arguments aren't quite as good as they're making them out to be. So we're constantly trying to find those holes and pick on their arguments. So as we advocate for sustainability, it is essential to consider the full environmental impact of our energy choices, not just in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So we're saying here that, yeah, greenhouse gas stuff is important, but there are lots of other things to consider as to why this might not be such a good idea. One final argument there. And again, lastly, We're still signposting our arguments. What's a GIF kid hufka? Ben? What's a GIF kid diftaha?
It's not me.
I said Ben, not Tyler's. Okay, so we make one final argument here, and we talk about the pursuit of renewable energy should not overshadow the need to invest in clean technologies that complement existing energy sources. So now the argument they're making is attacking the proposition team's overall argument, because they're saying, well, we need to do it now. We need to take this step and get this renewable energy now. But this final argument is saying that, well, we shouldn't just jump into it now with all these problems we've talked about, when there are much easier ways to transition smoothly. So we can have renewable energy working with fossil fuel energy for a little while. And as we build up the renewable energy, we'll rely less on the fossil fuels. So there are smarter ways to do this. It's not going to like destroy a country's economy, is basically their argument here. And then finally, in our conclusion, so we, the negative team, recognize the significance of renewable energy sources in the global fight against climate change. So we are immediately looking at, so we're immediately admitting that we understand our opponent's points of view, but now we're going to go on to say, however, we've got better reasons here as to why they're wrong. So, however, we firmly contend that a hasty and exclusive push towards renewables may have adverse effects on energy reliability, economic growth, and the environment. So here's our chance to relist all of our arguments. Our stance is not to dismiss the importance of renewables, but to advocate for a more balanced approach, one that integrates cleaner technologies and considers the practical challenges we face in the present. So again, we're trying to make it seem like the negative team is the team that has really thought about this issue. We've come up with a solution that works for everybody. So we're not going to leave people without electricity. And we're not just going to put them into a situation that is extremely expensive for them in the beginning. We want to do this the right way. And then finally, we urge you to reject the motion and consider a more comprehensive and sustainable energy strategy. Thank you. So yeah, so we see there how we've managed to tie in our arguments in the conclusion. And we've also then asked them to not only to reject the motion and side with us, but we've also put it in terms of that it's more it's a more all-inclusive strategy. So again, there's going to be no super expensive costs at the beginning. There's not going to be any problems with reliability. Will the energy cut out? Will we always have electricity? And we're basically trying to position ourselves as the team that just makes more sense than the positive team. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's have a look now. We'll have a look at the second opposition speaker. And then we'll have a look at the third opposition speaker, just to look at how a team can develop their case to be nice and strong. So, second speaker for the opposition. Again, they need to start with an introduction. So greet the audience, judges, and the opposing team. Remind everyone of the motion and the fact that we're against it, and then provide a brief summary of the arguments presented by the first speaker of the team. We then go on to reinforce and expand our arguments, and we go on to address any arguments made by the second affirmative speaker. strengthening our case, so presenting new evidence and examples, and talking about why it's such an important issue and the impact that it can have on the world, our country, our community, depending on what the topic of the debate is. We then also want to prepare for any rebuttals that may be made by the next speaker and conclude our speech. So let's have a look here. Went too far. So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges and honorable opponents, as the second speaker of the negative team, I rise to reinforce our position against the motion that the use of renewable energy sources should be significantly increased. So again, polite, respectful greeting, signposting, making our speech as obvious as possible, second speaker, negative team, and we've stated the motion. Recapping the arguments by our first speaker, we have emphasized the practical challenges and potential drawbacks of solely relying on renewable energy sources. So now's the time where they start to again attack the main argument of the proposition team. We firmly contend that while renewable energy it's important, and in the future we probably will end up relying on it, it cannot be the only thing that we need to do to address very complex global energy needs. So allow me to further strengthen our case and address the arguments put forth by the affirmative team. So again, more signposting. And here is where we're saying, like, this can't be the only solution. There've got to be other solutions to fix this big problem. The affirmative team asserts that increasing the use of renewable energy will significantly reduce carbon emissions and combat climate change. So we're taking their argument there, and now we're coming up with reasons why we think it's wrong. So while we share the common goal of environmental sustainability, we believe that an exclusive focus on renewables overlooks the broader picture. So this argument we're attacking by saying, you think there's only one solution to this problem, but there's a lot more solutions to think about. Transitioning away from fossil fuels requires a balanced approach that considers all available options. So then we go on to list some other ideas. So we provide some evidence there of other things that we could do instead of just green energy. By combining a diverse range of energy sources, we can achieve greater emissions reductions without jeopardizing energy security. So we can have it both ways. We can have it be reliable and consistent, and we can also have it be healthy for the environment too. But we need to think about this a little bit more than just jumping straight to solar and wind powered stuff. So in response to the affirmative team's claim that renewable energy technologies are becoming more reliable, we acknowledge the progress made in this field. So again, we're considering their point of view, but now we're saying, here's where you're wrong. So, however, it is crucial to recognize that challenges still persist, especially in the context of a large-scale energy demand. So they're saying, yes, if you were just to try and put a green energy system in your camper van or on your house, not a problem. You could do that very easily. But where is it here? But if we're going to do this for an entire country, then there's going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot more problems to deal with by doing it on such a large scale. The intermittent nature of renewables requires significant investments in energy storage and grid infrastructure. So again, going back to the cost, it's going to be very expensive to make sure that we have enough batteries to hold all the energy that we store. And there's going to need to be a lot more equipment used to do it on such a big scale. So these costs are often overlooked and constrain national budgets, potentially leading to higher energy prices for consumers. So the basis, so in this instance, the basis of how much anything costs comes from how much does it cost to make that product, and it's followed by then how many people do we expect to use it. So if we're going to spend, say, billions and billions of dollars on developing this national clean energy situation, then we're going to need to charge people quite a lot of money to be able to use it to make money back, which is the point of the business. So we can feed our employees, make sure no one goes hungry, all that sort of stuff. So these are a lot of important decisions they need to make on this topic. And it's good that the opposition team is pointing them all out. We go on to address the next issue. So furthermore, so separating the issues again, the affirmative team argues that renewable energy will lead to job creation and economic growth. While it is true that the renewable energy sector has seen growth, we must also consider the potential negative impact on traditional energy industries. So they've presented a good point. Let's present a counter argument as to why it's not such a good point in this context. Heavy reliance on renewables could lead to job losses in fossil fuel dependent regions, affecting livelihoods and communities. So we're talking about, to help a country, we don't want to have to sacrifice parts of that country. So if they lose their jobs and don't have money, how are they going to live? We must strike a balance between embracing clean energy and supporting the transition of workers in affected industries. So what they're saying is, again, going back to the proposition team's argument, which is we need to do this now. This is such a big problem. It has to be done immediately. We're turning around and saying, well, we need to take our time with this so as fewer people are affected as possible. We really need to consider this and be smart. Addressing the affirmative team's concern about environmental consequences, we acknowledge the importance of responsible energy production. So again, we're saying, yeah, they've thought about this, okay, but here's a reason why that's not such a good idea. However, the assertion that renewables are entirely free of environmental impact is misleading. So now we're turning around and saying, your point of view, it's not as clean as you think it is. So again, we're attacking their whole case. The production and disposal of renewable technologies also generates waste and utilizes resources that require careful management and consideration. So there's another cost involved in clean energy, is how do we handle any sensitive materials properly? Hey, Tylos, does that wire taste good? Is it tasty? And in our conclusion, so we sum it all up. The negative team firmly believes that a balanced energy strategy is necessary to address our global energy challenges. So again, balancing it out, don't just rush into this. While renewable energy is a critical component of the future, it cannot be implemented in isolation. So again, we need to balance it out, just constantly reminding the audience of our important points. We must carefully weigh the benefits and drawbacks of all available energy sources and promote an inclusive approach that ensures a stable, reliable, and sustainable energy future. So again, we need to look at it from more than just one point of view. We need to consider everything and make the best possible decision. And all of these things about this one debate topic, they are all very, very transferable into other debate topics. My goodness. Before every speech I've talked about, I've mentioned the fact that we need to be respectful and polite, and all I'm seeing is shut up, you dummy, in the chat box. So once more, we make a claim to the audience and the judges, support our point of view, reject the motion, and believe our side of the debate. So, on to the third opposition speaker. Let's see how they close out their case. So once more, introduction, greet everybody, remind the audience of the motion and our team's position, summarize our key arguments. We need to address the affirmative team's arguments and highlight why is our point of view better. So don't just say they're wrong. We also need to now point out, why are we so right? What's so good about our arguments? We also need to discuss why it's such an important issue and the impact that this issue can have on the greater population. And we need to talk about, is it possible to do? And what would be involved in doing it? We need just one final lot of rebuttals here before we conclude our argument. So let's have a look. So, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges and worthy opponents, as the third speaker of the negative team, I rise to conclude our strong case against the motion that the use of renewable energy sources should be significantly increased. So again, perfect introduction there. We know we've politely greeted everybody. We've mentioned what team we're on, what speaker we are, and we've mentioned the motion. Perfect setup. Throughout this debate, we have presented a balanced and pragmatic approach to address this global energy challenge, or to address the global energy challenges. Allow me to reinforce our key points and address the arguments put forth by the affirmative team. So again, we're making it obvious. We're going to make our case stronger, and we're going to try and attack our opponent's case. The affirmative team has rightly emphasized the urgency of combating climate change. So again, we're agreeing with them to some degree, saying it is important. We share their concern for the environment and future generations. So we're the same in that aspect. We care about this. However, our contention lies in the exclusive focus on renewable energy sources. So we're saying our problem with their argument is their solution specifically. While renewables play a crucial role in a sustainable energy future, they cannot be the sole solution to our energy needs. Addressing the affirmative team's claim that renewable energy can reliably meet our demands, we acknowledge the progress made in energy storage and grid technology. So again, we're acknowledging what they've said, but now we're going to turn it around and say, yeah, but here's how we can do it better. The challenge of intermittency remains, especially in regions with limited renewable resources. A sudden and drastic transition to renewables could lead to energy shortages and grid instability, risking economic disruptions and compromising energy security. So we've reminded them of all the arguments that have been made against their case, and showing how they prove their argument wrong. So we've always got to be working towards that as the opposition team, making sure that we're trying to undermine or make weaker our opponent's case. Furthermore, we must consider the economic implications of a rapid transition to renewables. Here's their overall Hey, Ben, why'd you change your name to Tylos? Teasing. Okay. Where are we here? So yeah, so we've come across their argument, and we have said evidence in the chat box. I'll have a look at it after class, see if I can figure it out based on your evidence. So yeah, so we're now attacking their whole argument here, because what was their initial argument? Their initial argument was we need to change to renewable energy immediately and entirely. So now we're saying that a quick transition to renewables can have some economic implications. So the negative team believes in a balanced energy strategy that supports traditional energy sectors while gradually integrating cleaner alternatives. So again, we're restating the fact that we agree that we need renewable energy, but we need to do it in a smart way. Take our time and transition slowly, so nobody's put out, no one loses their jobs, and no one goes without power. Abruptly phasing out fossil fuels could lead to job losses and economic downturns in regions heavily reliant on these industries. A just and inclusive transition must be prioritized to protect livelihoods and avoid social upheaval. So now we're adding in more reasons to that argument, and we're saying we want to protect the fact that people need to make money from their jobs, and we also want to avoid any social upheaval. So, you know, people might get very upset if they suddenly lose their jobs. So we need to protect everybody from that. We need to addressing the affirmative team's concern. We move on to the next concern they had about the environmental impact of traditional energy sources. We recognize the need for responsible energy production. So again, we're saying, yes, we've considered that, but we also we have considered the fact that it needs to be produced responsibly, and we don't want to destroy the environment further. The negative team advocates for continued advancements in clean technologies like carbon capture and storage, which can significantly reduce emissions from fossil fuel-based power plants. So again, we're saying that we do agree our energy sources need to be clean and responsible, but we can still do those things with fossil fuel. So we don't actually need to transfer to green energy to make the environment cleaner. A balanced approach allows us to address environmental concerns without dismissing the practical challenges of transitioning entirely to renewables. So again, it's saying if we take our time with this, we can eventually get to being entirely green, but we're not going to cause any other problems by doing that. Again, moreover, so we're moving on to the next topic here. The negative team supports international commitments to reduce emissions and protect the environment. So in the proposition team's previous speech, we'll remember that they mentioned the Paris Climate Accord and all of these international agreements to go greener. However, we believe that achieving these goals requires a comprehensive energy strategy that includes a mix of energy sources, allowing us to meet energy demand sustainably while minimizing adverse economic impact. So again, going back to taking our time, doing it smart, and avoiding any job loss, so people lose money, and just protecting everybody, make sure we're doing this responsibly. And finally, we're going to sum up our argument and say, in conclusion, the negative team has presented a practical and balanced case that prioritizes energy security, economic stability, and environmental responsibility. So we're going back to citing all of our team's main arguments. While we appreciate the benefits of renewable energy, we urge the audience and esteemed judges to consider the feasibility of significantly increasing the use of renewables without jeopardizing other essential aspects of our energy system. So again, we're pointing out, we agree that we should go green, but do it responsibly, and let's not cause any other big problems. Together, we can forge a sustainable energy future that combines cleaner technologies with responsible resource management. Thank you. So one final plea to everybody that we can do this responsibly and in a smart way where we minimize the people that are affected. So that's how we want to sum up our arguments. Well, that's how we want to write our arguments to make the strongest possible case. So study those documents. And I'm not expecting the language to be immediately perfect, but we definitely want to make sure that we try to meet that structure. So focus on that structure first, focus on your content, your information, and then we can work towards increasing the formal language that we use. So that's class time tonight, guys. Good job. Thanks for sticking in there.
Teacher, you may not want to check the chat.
I may not want to check the chat. Well, now